It is 7 a.m. A quorum is present, and the meeting has been duly called and posted in the time and manner required by law. I'd like to invite Debbie Copeland, Outreach Director for St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, to open the meeting with a prayer and lead the audience in pledges and the American and Texas flags.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, as the excitement of a new school year begins to fill the air, help us to gather our gifts and come together in support of our Lubbock ISD family. We are all part of its success. We ask for a desire to learn in our students, a passion for teaching in our teachers, hearts for serving others in our staff, patience, understanding, and guidance for our administrators and school board. May our decisions and actions ensure that every student feels valued, supported, and motivated to succeed. May we love and support each other in all that we do and always be ever mindful of our blessings. Amen.
Amen.
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Ms. Copeland.
Thank you.
I will now open the floor to trustee comments. Okay. Next order of business is citizen comments. Before we begin, I would like to review the provision in board policy governing the procedures for public participation as reflected in BED local. The audience shall not enter into discussion or debate on the matters being considered by the board. I will remind members of the board that the citizens comment section of our board meeting is for the purpose of listening to patrons, but we are not allowed to comment or debate on issues that are not posted. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes, and a timer will go off at the completion of 3 minutes. I would ask that you conclude your comments within the time limit allowed. As I call your name, if you would come up to the podium and state your name for the record. Phyllis Gambles.
She's on her way, but she's not here.
Okay. Yeah, I'll if she's on her way, I'll come back to it. Does any trustee have an issue with that coming back?
Nope.
Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. Consider board approval of the minutes for the special called meeting held June 6, 2024, and the called public hearing and regular meeting held June 20th, 2024. Do we have any corrections to the minutes from the June meetings of the board as printed and distributed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as presented. We will now move into the business portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public who would like to address the board regarding any of the posted board agenda items? Okay. Academic action items. Consider issuing a school district teaching permit for Nick Cordes to teach career and technical education courses in business and marketing, certified by the superintendent. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, so Mr. Cordes has extensive experience working in sports recruitment, sponsorships, and donor relations. He has hosted hundreds of events as the founder and owner of his company, West Texas Endurance. He's worked for Texas Tech University in community engagement, and he's also worked on the Today Show. So we're excited to ask for your approval of a teaching permit for Nick Cordes to teach career and technical education courses in businesses and marketing.
Do I have a motion to approve issuing a school district teaching permit to Nick Cordes to teach CTE courses in business and marketing as certified by the superintendent?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed with same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Consider issuing a school district teaching permit for Adrian Jordan to teach career and technical education courses in business, marketing, and family and consumer science, certified by the superintendent. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, so Miss Jordan is a former student success specialist with training in interpersonal relationships, communication, and family and community partnerships. She currently owns and operates her own culinary business and previously served as a cosmetology instructor and salon operator. We're excited to ask for your approval for a teaching permit for Mrs. Adrienne Jordan.
Do I have a motion to approve issuing a school district teaching permit to Adrienne Jordan to teach CTE courses in business, marketing, and family and consumer science as certified by the superintendent?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Consider issuing a school district teaching permit for Matthew Medlin to teach career and technical education courses in trade and industry certified by the superintendent. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, so Mr. Medlin has over 2 decades of experience in the construction and trades industry. He served as the lead carpenter and fabricator for a local fencing company and worked for almost 20 years as the lead framer for Kelly Burgett Construction. We're excited to ask for your approval for a teaching permit for Mr. Medlin.
Do I have a motion to approve issuing a school district teaching permit to Matthew Medlin to teach CTE courses in trade and industry as certified by the superintendent?
So moved.
That motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Consider issuing a school district teaching permit for Charlie Snyder to teach career and technical education courses in health science certified by the superintendent. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, so Mr. Snyder has an undergraduate degree in animal science, and he is a licensed doctor of chiropractic care. He has spent the last 5 years working in health and wellness and currently serves as the owner for Well for Life Chiropractic. And before I move on, I do want to take a moment and thank Amy Baker, our executive director for CTE, for recruiting and vetting these wonderful 4 new people that we are welcoming to our team upon your approval. Thank you, Amy.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve issuing a school district teaching permit to Charlie Snyder to teach CTE courses in health science as certified by the superintendent?
I so moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Approval of the 24-25 Student Code of Conduct. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, so this is an annual item that we bring to you. I'm going to ask Mrs. Kami Finger to come forward to share any of the nuances and any of the changes that we are recommending for this year's Student Code of Conduct. Good morning, Board of Trustees. How are y'all?
Good morning.
Good morning. This year, you'll not see any changes in our Student Code of Conduct. You can anticipate that this next legislative session will bring many changes of which we'll be staying in tune for and noting and making those changes as necessary. But if you have any questions about the current Student Code of Conduct, I'm happy to answer any of those.
So we're just going to vote then on keeping this code of conduct as is for another year. Okay.
Any questions? No. Do I have a motion to approve the 2024-2025 Student Code of Conduct?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Approval of interlocal agreement with Region 17 Education Service Center for the Learning Acceleration Support Opportunities, Strong Foundations Implementation. Dr. Rollo.
Yes, so I'm actually going to ask Misty to share more information regarding this. It is a grant that we have received that we will partner with Region 17 to facilitate.
Absolutely. So we received from the Texas Education Agency the LASSO grant, and it is to work on math instruction in elementary campuses inside of our district. And as part of that grant, they are helping us with professional development, and then they are returning a portion of that grant to us to be able to pay for our coaches who will support our campuses along that way. So those campuses will receive some extensive training from the state of Texas over the course of the year, and then from great minds as part of Eureka Math. So this is part 2 of a memorandum that you already approved to say we're going to work with the Service Center through that grant.
And I'm excited because this is addressing math, which you guys saw when we presented our STAR scores was an area of concern for us. So this is going to be an added layer of support around math instruction.
Was this a grant available to everybody? We applied for it, I assume.
Yes, sir. It was an application process, but
Awesome.
yes, sir, it was open.
But it was a competitive grant.
Yes.
You didn't automatically receive
Okay.
it.
Well, I appreciate, I mean, as we've always talked about, the concept of trying to find additional funds through whatever source that we can that makes sense for our district. So, do I have a motion to approve the interlocal agreement with Region 17 for the Lasso Strong Foundations implementation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Approval of memorandum of understanding with the Texas Tech University Health Science Center for Texas Child Health Access through Telemedicine Program. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, so this is a program that we have partnered with Texas Tech Health Sciences Center with for several years. It's been under several different names, but the current name is the Texas Child Health Access through Telemedicine, or TCHAT program. It's been known as Twitter. That obviously had some other associations, and then also I think there was another name in between there, but this is what it's called now. And this is something that allows our students to have access to psychiatric care via telemedicine in a much more expedited manner if they need that access to that. I put in the superintendent update the numbers of referrals. And so if you looked at that, you saw that we are definitely accessing this. Our families are definitely accessing this service, and it is providing much needed support in our community. So we're happy to bring this memorandum of understanding to you today. And Charlotte's here. I want to thank her. She's our lead in working with the TCHAT organization. She'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any more specific questions regarding the program.
Great program. We've been in for a while, so it's great.
Is there a cost associated with this?
No, there is not for us.
Do I have a motion to approve the MOU with TTU-HSC for the Texas Child Health Access through Telemedicine Program?
Also move.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Approval of memorandum of understanding for the Juvenile Justice Alternative Education Program. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, as you guys are aware, we serve as the educational programming arm of the JJAEP, and this is just our annual MOU that we bring to you for approval. You can see the different areas that this memorandum covers. Kami Finger oversees that from central office perspective, so I'm sure she would have be able to answer any specific questions you have about this partnership.
And the other districts pay their portion, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the MOU for the Juvenile Justice Alternative Education Program for the 2024-2025 school year?
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. For those following along, we are going to table item I, just due to a lack of quorum, based on a recusal. Moving to next item, approval of reappointment of Star Care Specialty Health System Board of Trustees. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, so with our partnership with StarCare, Lubbock ISD has 3 seats on their board of directors that we have the ability to appoint who we want to sit on that based upon your approval. One of those seats, the term is not expiring, but we have 2 seats that are expiring in August. The 2 people who are serving based upon your appointment right now are Brian Welch and Amanda Tiarina. Both of these individuals have done a great job. Beth Lawson reports that they are very engaged board members, and they both are willing to serve a second term. And so we're bringing for your consideration and approval that we extend their term by another session.
And they'd each just served a year, right, already?
Yes.
So they're just getting their feet wet.
No,
That's
it's a
right.
2-year term. So they will have
Okay.
served 2 years
2
in
years.
August.
Okay.
Our board approved them 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Almost 2 years ago.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve reappointing Brian Welch and Amanda Tiarina to the Star Care Specialty Health System Board of Trustees for the 2-year term indicated?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Before we move on to administrative action items, we're going to move back to citizen comments, and bear with me, I'm going to read the required agenda item again. Next order of business is citizen comments. Before we begin, I would like to review the provisions in board policy governing the procedures for public participation as reflected in BED local. The audience shall not enter into discussion or debate on matters being considered by the board. I will remind members of the board that the citizen comments section of our board meeting is for the purpose of listening to patrons. We are not allowed to comment or debate on issues that are not posted. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes, and a timer will go off at the completion of 3 minutes. I would ask that you conclude your comments within the time limit allowed. As I call your name, if you would come up to the podium and state your name for the record. Phyllis Gambles to the podium, please.
Good morning. I
Good morning.
apologize for being late. Your construction on 19th is disrespectful.
We agree.
So I am Phyllis Gant from the Lubbock chapter NAACP. We have received 2 formal complaints on board members, but my president, Milton Lee, and myself would like to meet with you, Kathy, and discuss them before presenting them today. One is regarding Beth Bridges, and the other one is regarding Lala Chavez. So we will contact you and make an appointment, if that's okay, and meet with you. I also wanted to stand here. A few months ago, you guys appointed Will Smith as the principal of Dunbar. And I stood and stated my truth. I stand by the fact I felt like the HR process was not conducive to what we needed. But I want to apologize to this board. I'm a person of integrity. And as aggressive as I am about bringing forth complaints, I'm equally aggressive about correcting myself. Will Smith is going to be phenomenal for Dunbar. We've got a team, we're excited, he's given us direction, and I just wanted to let you guys know that was an excellent appointment. Ms. Wilbanks, Estacado High School. On a spirit of integrity and humility, we're moving forward to have a productive year for 24 and 25. None of us are perfect, none of us have arrived, and we can all stand down and meet for the greater good of our students. So I wanted to be clear to make that same statement in this spot as I did in my disdain. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else signed up, so we will close citizen comments. Picking up administrative action items. Approval of a resolution concerning compliance with certain public school safety and security requirements. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, and so if you guys will recall, a year ago, the board, those of you who are on the board, the board approved a resolution with regard to compliance around the law stating that we have to have an armed peace officer on every campus. And if you could not be in compliance with that law, the board was required to adopt a resolution, and we had to do that by March of this past year, and we did that. We put a year on the resolution, and so we are bringing this back to you without a year on it so that this will stay in place moving forward. This resolution simply states that we are moving toward compliance with this law. We have budgeted for a police officer on every campus. There just aren't enough applicants to be able to meet the letter of the law at this time. But as we receive applicants, Chief Mendoza is conducting interviews. In fact, we hired 3 recently. So, but we've also had some resign. So you take some steps forward and some back. But I do want to state that I'm grateful to Chief Mendoza for his diligent work around this. I am also very grateful to our local law enforcement agencies who are stepping in to help us cover ourselves when the officers are working on their days off on our campuses to help us move closer to being in compliance with this law. But that's what this resolution is about today. Happy to answer any questions. Chief would be here, but he is actually in a police chief training this week, so he's not with us today.
Kathy, I think for the folks who may be listening now or may listen in the future, and you talked about our partnership with other local agencies, without getting into specifics, kind of if you would expand upon that, so the public knows we are doing everything we can to have people in buildings on a regular basis.
Absolutely. So we're working with LPD officers. We're working with some people from the sheriff's department, and I believe even some DPS officers who on their days off, we're paying them a daily rate to actually spend their day off on our campuses, helping us cover. And so we're working around their schedules. If we can, we're letting them work on their own child's campus if they have a student in our schools. That's not always possible in order to cover as much as we can. But that does free up our officers to cover other campuses as well. And so right now we're using what we call a zone effort where we have our police officers deployed very close proximity. So their schools that they're assigned to are very close. And then one of those other law enforcement folks is covering the other campus when they can't be on both at the same time. It's quite an effort. It is a Jenga board of scheduling, as you can only imagine.
And then I think it's important, that's a requirement from the last legislative session.
Yes.
What are we getting per school?
We are getting $15,000 per campus to cover all of the safety requirements that were outlined in House Bill 3, which included a lot of facility requirements. And fortunately, our community passed a bond election in 2018 that allowed us to be almost completely in compliance with all of those facility aspects prior to this becoming in statute. So we're grateful for that. But as you can imagine, $15,000 per campus to cover all of those safety requirements doesn't even come close to covering the cost of one police officer, plus the vehicle, training, uniforms, equipment, all of the things that go along with that.
And that actual cost is about, for the first year,
It's about $110,000.
about 110, and we get 15. Okay. And as I understand it, of course, this happened before I arrived, but more than 1,000 school districts in the state, and they all had the same mandate. So it's created huge competition because
Yes.
there's not capacity for police officers.
Absolutely.
So you guys have done a great job figuring it out. So you're to be commended in the chief because, man, that created a huge problem for
Well,
school
the thanks
districts.
goes to Chief. He has
Yeah.
done a phenomenal job of
We'll be sure and
coordinating.
thank him.
His police force has doubled since he's been here.
Yeah.
And that's been a priority since before this law was passed
Sure.
for us to increase that presence. But it's just not possible for us to be fully compliant right now with the lack of applicants that we have.
And good for him for getting qualified good applicants
Yes.
and not making a mistake in hiring. So I'm
Absolutely.
glad he's picky.
Yeah, I've been impressed with our force the last several years. I think the fact that we've not had to talk about it on this dais has been really nice.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the resolution concerning compliance with certain public school safety and security requirements, including the district's claim of a good cause exception as outlined in the resolution?
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next up, approval of teacher and administrative appraisal calendar and list of certified appraisers. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, so this is an annual item that we bring to you in July, and this is our teacher evaluation system as well as our principal evaluation system. The teacher evaluation system is T-TESS, Texas Teacher Evaluation and Support System, and then our principal evaluation, we also use this for our assistant principals, is TPES, Texas Principal Evaluation and Support System. And so each year you are required to adopt the list of evaluators plus the calendar plus the processes that go behind that, and these all meet the legal requirements that are in statute around teacher and principal evaluation. Happy to answer any questions.
Has this been in place for a while? How long have we been, have we utilized this
Since
system?
the state created the system.
Okay.
So it used to be PDOS, and then it's been well more than 10 years. I'd say probably 15 years that it's been T-TESS and TPES. 10 to 15 years.
Okay, so this is not something we're changing. This
No,
is just a
it's not new.
recertification.
And it's the state system. The district does have the local flexibility. If we want to develop our own evaluation system, we have the ability to do that. It does have to be submitted for state approval before we can adopt that, but we have elected to go with T-TESS and TPES for several years. And we've done crosswalks, or are working on crosswalks with our leadership definition for TPES. And so we're excited to show how those connections can be made.
I so moved that.
Let me read it real quick. Marion. Do I have a motion to approve the teacher and administrative appraisal calendar and list of certified appraisers for the 2024-2025 school year?
I so moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Additionally, we are tabling on the agenda, I believe it's listed as action item 6C, the approval of proposed policy revision to CPC local. There needs to be additional discussion on that item. Moving on to procurement and contracts, approval of district purchases. Rick?
Yes, good. Sorry, I apologize. Good morning, Board of Trustees. Great to see you. Just have three items for you for your consideration this morning. We have the first, the private school curriculum partnership that we are required to do. Region 17, the purchase for those, we're using Title II and Title IV funds for the equitable services funding for those schools that you see listed there. The second one, speaking of our security, our police and safety, these are 3 vehicles that we are purchasing for the fleet. As Dr. Rollo mentioned, we hired 3 officers. The partnership that the ongoing agreement that we have with Chief is as he hires them, then we purchase the vehicles. We're not going to have a fleet of vehicles sitting in a parking lot somewhere waiting for us to find the police officer. So as we find them, then we purchase the vehicle to equip them. So all of that is in the budget already as that you had just previously adopted. Then the last one there is the Principal Fellows Program. It's an interlocal agreement. It's a long time partnership that we've had with Texas Tech. It's in job embedded learning while they're also completing their master's degree. We've had as many as 3 Principal Fellows. This year we're doing 1. And so we've had very successful administrators come through that program that currently serve as our principals right now. So we're really proud of that, of the work that and that partnership that we've done with them. So be happy to answer any questions.
And this is pass-through grant funded. We did apply
yes.
for a grant for this principal residency program.
Nice.
Cycle 7.
Rick, on the private school curriculum, that's a requirement that has to be billed through us.
That's correct.
We've talked about that before, but just for the general public,
Yes.
we're not giving our money to, no disrespect to private schools. I think they serve their purpose, what have you, but I just want to make sure people understand that we're we're not in a position to give our money away, but,
Right. We are required to do so.
yeah, okay.
And is that a new requirement?
No, it's been a requirement.
Yeah, since
I mean, I can't tell you,
Yeah.
but it's been,
They just don't always,
yeah, it's up to them
Yeah,
to
they don't
choose
always
whether
go
they
through
access
us.
it or not. But when they do, then we have to pay for it.
And we get any additional funding for that, or we just have to? Interesting.
Yes.
it's our
Many- many-
blessing for accepting title funds.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions on any of the purchases?
No, sir.
Do I have a collective motion to approve the district purchases as presented?
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Approval of district contract renewals, Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes,
back
thank you,
to
Mr. Curry. This is the first item on here is an annual item we bring to you. It's our partnership that we have with communities and schools. Just a great partnership, a great asset for our kids and our families. Kenna West and her leadership with the Communities and Schools organization. They just do so many different things that we don't have the ability to do for our families and kids. And so you see the schools listed there that are impacted. We don't have every school on here yet. It would be a great thing for us to be able to do so. As you can see, it's expensive, or it costs a lot of money. Well worth the money that we're spending, though, there. And you see that we're spending grant funds to help mitigate those costs to us. So the second one is our.
Rick, if I could jump
sure.
in. We are on all but I believe 4 campuses right now. So it's in the vast majority of
Yeah.
our campuses, and that has grown. But I do want to share that this is also funded through title funds, both campus allotment and then a portion also from district allotment. And then we also have applied, as Mr. Curry said earlier, we've applied for some other grants too that are funding some of the programming that's included in this as well.
And which 4 campuses are not included? Do you, I'm
I
sorry.
believe it's Talkington, Roscoe Wilson, Harwell.
I'm gonna.
and-
Sorry.
Talkington's on here, at
Talkington,
least the
yeah.
middle
Okay,
school.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
I have to pull my list.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
what I-
we'll
I'll
get
get
the
that
list.
for you.
Yeah.
No big deal.
I should know that, and I don't off the
No,
top of my
that's
head,
right.
but
Well,
we will get that to you.
They do a great job.
Mhm.
Yes, it is
Is-
the number
Over
one
and over.
dropout prevention research-based program in the country.
It does look like Talkington High School is not utilizing it. Talkington Middle School is, the
Okay.
way it's listed on here.
Okay. Okay. The numbers didn't add.
But that's a significant increase since the first year I was on the board. And so I
Yes.
haven't been a part of CIS. I mean, they do God's work on the campus, and so appreciate our principals making that a priority. Because
Yes.
I do think, while they can't reach every kid, I do think they do a really good job of facilitating all the things in the community that a kid may need to access who's in a place that we would hope they wouldn't be in. So I'm thankful.
And they can step in and do so many things that as school district employees, we can't. We can't put kids in our cars and drive them to a doctor's appointment. We can't take a kid to pick up their glasses we just don't have, number one, there's some liabilities in doing those things. And number two, we don't have the capacity to do those things. And so they really step in and have wraparound services for families in ways that extend what we're able to do. So we are very, very grateful for this partnership. And I want to commend Amanda. She works very closely with CIS. As you said, Mr. Crow, I want to commend our principals because they're choosing to prioritize their title funds to cover this. And then I also want to commend both Ken Casares and Lane Soberad for maximizing grant dollars to help support CIS as well with some additional programming.
I've seen the administrators really embrace this at the schools that I've been part of, and it's a wonderful program, and they definitely value it.
And I'll share that a lot of the expansion happened when we had ESSER dollars. And so some of the campuses that had not utilized communities and schools used ESSER dollars as a way to add that as one of what they could offer. thinking we'll do this short term, it will help us through this difficult time of filling in gaps. But they have seen how valuable it is, and so now they have reprioritized their title funds to keep it going on their campus.
Okay,
Back to you, Mr. Rodriguez.
thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Sorry
No,
for
no,
that
that's
commercial
great.
break.
That's great. Great conversation there. The next item there is the general liability and vehicle liability coverage for our fleet. We did present this in greater detail to the Finance Operations Committee last week, but it's just insurance for ourselves and for vehicles that we have. And then the final one is the scheduling software called Timely. We've partnered with Timely over the last couple of years, and I think certainly Misty has become truly the Misty and Max have become the true experts of working with our principals, helping them become even more efficient with their master schedules. That then allows us to really maximize the use of an FTE on a high school. Really, the secondary campuses are the ones that are significantly impacted by this. And so looking for every bit of efficiency, I think it allowed us to save significant amounts of monies over this last staffing season, given the circumstances, as you all are well aware. So well worth the purchase of this or the cost of this software for the turnaround on the investment.
I would ask, how are the administrators and schools embracing the Timely program? I think
Year
it
one
it
was
a
a
little
change, and definitely had its challenges as we looked at doing things differently. But as we did reflection at the end of year one and got ready to revamp our calendar plan to move into year two, they very much appreciate what they're able to do inside the program, and you can manipulate schedules. We had a middle school campus that actually had 13 different alternate schedules to try to find the best efficiency and the best fit for their kids. And the program allows you to do that, and then you can select the one that you want to use and move forward. So we were able to save 40 FTEs last year using the program and looking at how we find efficiencies and make the best schedule. So it's definitely an adjustment on our part in our thinking, but it's been an adjustment that has now been embraced. So it's working really well.
And who all is trained on it? Sorry, I'm just catching
The
up.
principals use it along with their assistant principal and or associate at the high school. And then some of our counselors have also participated in that, but it's more in the hands of principals and assistant principals. They're trained on how to use the program, and it's, if you imagine when you're making a master schedule for a large school, we've gone from Excel spreadsheets and sticky notes to maybe a little bit more clunky system to a system where you can literally just drag and drop. It recalculates what each teacher has, where the kids are, finds you a list of errors, and then lets you say, okay, actually that's not going to be a good fit. And as we try to continue to offer programs and opportunities for our kids, this is a Jenga board of extreme fashion to try to put together. So this allows us to do that and still maximize access for kids and maximize for adults too.
That's great.
In secondary, it's, we
Yeah,
don't
just
use it
in
in
secondary.
elementary.
Yeah, just in secondary.
Any questions? More questions? Do I have a collective motion to approve the district contract renewals as presented?
So moved.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. We will now switch over to the workshop portion of our meeting. And I believe first up, we will, first reading of TASB Policy Update 123. Ms. Reber, are you going to make this very interesting for us?
I think our favorite word around updates is it's going to be riveting. So
Doubtful, but
we will work to meet that level of expectation. do my best. This is our first reading of Update 123. This is still continued cleanup from TASB from the last legislative session. So we are still looking at local policy and things that we need to make some adjustments on. You'll note that as this is reading 1, you will receive this in your superintendent update every week, and then we will actually not look at adoption on these local policies until September. And there are a few that we are still working on ourselves. You may have some questions on. We can also take this through committee to do a little bit bigger deep dive if we need to on some.
And if I can interject just one thing, because we have 2 new board members, and also for the public to understand, there are 2 arms in our policies. There's the legal arm and the local arm. The legal arm, we have no control over. You as trustees have no control over. It comes straight from statute and the law. Local, we do have some flexibility to make some adjustments. So that's why she's bringing just local to you. It's important that we stay abreast of any new legal laws, and we do that as an administration. But from a local standpoint, that's the only thing that you guys have some control and say over. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, and to help with clarification on that, I'm going to give you a 30,000-foot overview of what the local policy change is, or if it's an addition, but you will get what we call a strike-through page that actually has what are the changes, what do they look like, what was taken out, or what was added in. And that's a recommendation from legal at TASB that says, here's what we recommend. We talk about it inside our internal teams to say, does that fit our procedures? Does that fit what we're doing? And then we can go back to TASB and say we need to make some adjustments based upon the way that we're doing things, and are we within the scope of the law? So they help us navigate those pieces together. So thank you for that. So you will see this in your update that will come out every week that will have links to those pieces so that you can scroll through and I always say have some exciting nighttime reading because some of the policy gets very exciting. So the first one is BBD, which is board member training and orientation. This is part of House Bill 3033. And this says that if the Attorney General finds that a trustee violates the Public Information Act, then the Attorney General can require that that trustee has to have additional training on the Public Information Act. Previously, it said that that would go to the board or it would be something in general, and now it is targeted and specific from the Attorney General to a trustee if there is a violation of that act. It's more of a language cleanup on that local policy. But this matches legal, so our choice around this one is not very vast in what we could choose to put in or not put in. The next one is BBFA. This is also for a board of trustee about conflict of interest. This one is an expansion to say that it is not just financial or other personal, but it should also include an ethical component to look at the commitment and the transparency that a board of trustee member has to make sure that they are not crossing over in either financial or personal interest in anything that's connected to a board transaction. This again is connected to legal. We don't have a lot of language leeway inside this one. All it does is take what already existed and provides a little bit more language and clarity in what that means when you talk about the personal interest. And stop me if you have any questions. Happy to answer along the way. CKC is around emergency plans. This is based upon a TEA model that said that you must notify parents of violent activity that has occurred or is being investigated. We already met the letter of this law and actually above and beyond in our safety notification system. So this local adjustment and the legal adjustment are not a shift in our procedures inside of our district, because we had already gone above and beyond that to make sure that our communication is consistent with our parents and to make sure that they're aware of any situation that takes place. This one is CKE security personnel. So the reference that we talked about earlier with our retired police officers, DPS police officers, local law enforcement that works on their day off, this is a cleanup component to make sure that those people are also listed inside our local policy, and it shows that their jurisdiction follows what is Lubbock ISD jurisdiction when they are working for us, and that they report to chief. So just making sure that there's some clarity inside that, because what we're seeing across the state, as y'all mentioned earlier, is that people are having to get police officers to support from all over. And so then there's making sure that there's clarity in the order of jurisdiction and policies and procedures so that people follow what is connected to the school district. So, and Chief does a great job training our people as they come in. This is something he had already enacted before we're looking at the change. Bless you. So it
Thank
already
you.
fits what they're doing and what their practice is. This is CQC on technology equipment. This requires that we adopt guidelines for model health and safety guidelines to make sure that our digital devices in our curriculum in K-12, that we are using them in a space that fits for the developmental age of students. And so we are also going to propose inside of this to add an exhibit. Our exhibit will actually have general guidelines showing from elementary to middle school to high school what it looks like to enhance technology use over time to make that age appropriate for kids, and how to incorporate safety inside of that. We already do that with our students, but this will put an exhibit connected to this local policy to add language around it and give us a framework for what it looks like to connect to wellness. We are not connecting it to a specific amount of hours at any level. That was a recommendation from TASB, simply because you want to make sure that we allow space for programming or innovation inside of a classroom for what a teacher is doing. But we do talk about that progressive adjustment over time with age that matches wellness for a student. And this will be something you actually have access to the exhibit also in what y'all will see in your handout that will be shared with you. DCE is about employment contracts. This is just clarifying that if someone has a non-Chapter 21 contract, they can request a hearing with the board when their contract is terminated during the contract term. This already matches in procedure and practice. It's just clarifying to divide Chapter 21 and non-Chapter 21 contracts apart from one another. DGBA, this is about employee complaints and grievances. This is the only change this is doing is making a cross-reference change. So we have a number of local policies that cross-reference to another local policy, and when that policy is updated or adjusted or has a letter change, they have to go back in and fix these. So the only thing it's doing is fixing the reference to another policy that has been changed in the past. They call this cleanup, and make a note at the bottom always that they don't charge us for the cleanup process, just in case you were wondering. So this one is EEH homebound instruction. This says that as part of the what is called the SAW, because you know in education we love our acronyms, but that's the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, that this talks about that a homebound student can also receive psychological, medical services or support as part of their homebound. So in other words, they're not restricted to not receive additional services as part of homebound. This already matches our procedures and practice, so it's just another cleanup in language for what we're already doing for students that are designated as homebound for a short or long period of time. This is EFA and EFB. And you may have heard some talk about instructional materials and library materials. This policy, or excuse me, this local recommendation actually has quite a bit of change inside of it. the Library Association has created new guidelines indicating how to create a collection. And so those guidelines are listed inside of this local policy. It also talks about who is allowed to request a review of an instructional material or a library material, and that is adjusted to match the legal code that came out in the last legislative session. It also has language to clarify what the procedures in practice are. And so what they are recommending is that you work through what your procedures are. So for example, if I want to review a library book, where do I turn the form in? Do I turn it into the librarian, to the principal, to central office? What does that look like? And instead of having a general rule that says you can make a recommendation to review a piece of library material, you actually write out the procedures for what that looks like. We already have written procedures inside Lubbock ISD, so it's matching what our written procedures are to our local procedures and making sure that those match. So TASB has given us a model piece. We have suggested some changes to that model based upon our local procedures to make sure that our timelines match and our language matches. For example, we have the form turned into the principal instead of the librarian, because in our schools, you don't just walk straight in and walk to the library because we have safety and security inside of our school entrances. And so TASB is reviewing that, and then we'll have that as part of your superintendent updates and then part of committee review. And we'll look at this again on second reading. But if you have any questions about this one, I'm happy to answer. Because when you look at this one, you will see pretty extensive strike-throughs and pretty extensive highlights for changes. The next one is FNG, Student Parent Complaints and Grievances. This again is just a policy cross-reference change. There has been changes in CKE policy around safety and security and around student welfare and protection from discrimination. There will be changes to that made in the future based upon some legal language. So this is just a policy reference to make sure that it's referenced to the right location. It's not changes in any procedures. GF public complaints is the same thing, references CKE local again. Because those have updates, they have to go back in and update this policy as well, but it has no additional policy change. Okay, that is it on update 123 for local. But you will see these as part of your connection that comes out in your superintendent update, and then we'll talk about it again in committee, and then we can come back and talk about it again when we look at voting in September. Do you have any questions?
That was riveting.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad that we met that criteria.
Yeah. A plus.
Yes. Thank you.
If no questions, we'll move on to the elementary reading curriculum. Dr. Rollo?
Yes, so I have shared with you guys previously our journey with looking at our literacy in elementary and doing a deep, deep dive. In fact, it was the summer of, what summer was it, 2021? It was the summer of 2021, and it was July. And I received a text message from Commissioner Morath asking if I could jump on a Zoom with him. And of course, when the commissioner sends you a text message, can you jump on a Zoom? I mean, of course you're going to do that. And he wanted to just visit about elementary reading. And he knew I had an elementary background, and he had been doing a deep dive himself in how children learn how to read. And he started talking about what he was envisioning around a new curriculum to teach children how to read that was based on not just phonics, phonetics, but also rich content. And he started talking about core knowledge. And I was a principal at Murphy for 10 years, and we were a national core knowledge visitation site. And so when he started talking core knowledge, he had me at hello. And so again, it was July of 2021. School was starting in the next few weeks. He was interested to see if we might be interested in piloting a new curriculum called Amplify Texas. So I pulled our team together, and I think they thought I was a bit crazy at first, but we pulled the team together. We brought in some principals who we knew had some previous experience with core knowledge, either as a teacher or administrator. And we visited with them about would they be interested in piloting Amplify Texas. At the same time, we had already planned on doing a deep dive based on what we had been learning and going through the reading academies, which were required out of the previous legislative session. I went through them myself because if we were asking our teachers and principals to go through it, I felt like I needed to understand what we were asking them to do. It was like a college level course, online course. It was very, very intense, but very powerful learning. And we realized that what we were doing around reading instruction did not necessarily align with what we were learning the latest research was saying about reading instruction. And so we pulled a literacy committee together during that same year, big committee with lots of teachers. We had some campus administrators. We had some Texas Tech instructors. We had some LCU folks. We had a lot of people around the table. We did a deep dive into a book called The Knowledge Gap. We did a book study. We looked at our data. We did a deep dive over that year. And at the end of that year, we were piloting at 4 schools in some grade levels, not across the whole school, but in some grade levels. At that same time, that same year, the literacy committee was meeting. At the end of that year, the 2021-2022 school year, the literacy committee determined that Amplify Texas would be a better fit for all of our elementary reading curriculum. And so for the next year, the 2022-2023 school year, we adopted Amplify Texas at all but one campus. And that one campus we gave some autonomy to because they were going through the new school design fellowship. That campus is now using that curriculum as well. So that is to set the stage for where we are now and where the state is moving and where we are plugging in to this effort. So Misty, am I turning it over to you?
Actually, we're going to
Turn it over to Kim.
Yep. Perfect. Perfect. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, I love that story because I was a critical part of that story. I was one of the campus principals who chose to pilot. And so we piloted Amplify at Hardwick when I was the principal there in 2 different grade levels. And so it is a great story. And you can see I showed this slide to you last board meeting around some of the growth that we've seen in reading since beginning using Amplify. And that pilot CER district is COVID Emergency Relief District. So these are the campuses that chose to use Amplify, and we were one of them. And you can see some of the gains that we experienced, that have experienced as a result of moving in this direction. As Dr. Rollo said, this is based on the science of teaching reading in the reading academies. And in order to teach someone to read, there are 2 components that have to be in place: decoding and language comprehension. And those coming together and having structured and systematic instruction in those 2 areas it'll come together, and that is what teaches a kid how to read. And so that is what Amplify and this program is based on. In addition, there are some best practices that are in place. As we said, there's those foundational skills. That's what we traditionally know as phonics. That has to be systematically taught. Text complexity is very important. Oftentimes in reading and English, we meet the kids where they're at in terms of reading, and if that's below grade level, they don't have an opportunity to engage with complex on grade level text. And so one of the best practices in literacy instruction is making sure that you're putting that challenging text in front of kids and you're giving them supports and scaffolds to get them to that grade level text. A knowledge coherence, as Dr. Rollo said, she referenced core knowledge. The cognitive research around reading has come out in the last several years, really specifically around building knowledge a core bit of knowledge that kids need to have, and vocabulary, working on that vocabulary. And then text-based responses. Not only are students reading, but they're writing about what they're reading, and they're responding to their reading and providing evidence from the text in their writing. And then, of course, following that up with assessment practices that really are embedded and that drive that instruction. So those are our best practices around literacy instruction. As Dr. Rollo said, she kind of went through this journey of where we were at. We piloted Amplify. It was actually in 21-22 we began the discussion in 20, but we piloted at Irvin, Hardwick, Miller, and Rush in a variety of grade levels. And then after Christmas, we actually piloted at Cavazos as well with several units there. Then we moved on and implemented across the district in 21-22 all the way through 8th grade. In 23-24, we continued that. We gathered a lot of feedback and we began work just really pulling in teachers and getting feedback from them around the curriculum, because we did have some challenges in the beginning. The entire time that we were doing this, we were also giving feedback to the state. So the state was developing the curriculum and changing the curriculum kind of based on that feedback that we were providing. This year, the direction that the state is going is they have taken Amplify and through the IMRA process, which is the instructional materials review, something that starts with an A, they are taking those materials, getting feedback from parents, from teachers, from research advocates for reading, and they're developing, or they have developed, what they call Edition 1. And Edition 1 is going to be piloted this year in 3 campuses in our district. Brown, Irvin, and Miller have all agreed that they are going to pilot the materials, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Ideally, moving into next year, we want to look at how this pilot goes. A lot of the materials that are in Edition 1 are what teachers have already done in Amplify, but we're going to get feedback from our teachers. We are providing feedback to the state, and we're going to see if that is a direction that we want to move to next year. One of the things with Edition 1 is that brings additional funding. If you use Edition 1, there is additional funding that comes from the state for every student that uses those materials. So the evolution of TEA's product, I've kind of already explained that. They over the last 4 years have taken feedback and developed Amplify. So we started out with obviously 1.0, and currently we're using the COVID emergency relief materials 4.0 and moving towards that Edition 1, which is SBOE, so the state board does review and approve those materials. As I said, they are pulling in stakeholder reviews, so they're using feedback that they get from Texas educators, from pilot users, and from the districts that not only that are using it, but it's released online, so everybody has access to look and see the materials, and they're taking that in, and the State Board of Education will be voting on it in November. Once again, parents, subject matter experts, and advisory boards are providing that feedback. Some of the things that these open educational resources seek to address are some of the problems that we've seen in reading instruction. So research has shown that 83% of assignments that are given in reading classes are below grade level. And so OER is going to have, the materials are going to be at grade level. Many of the materials are not aligned to the standards, and sometimes they can't be customized. So some products that schools use, they don't necessarily get to customize that. The nice thing about both Amplify and Edition 1 is that we've been able to customize that for local content. So as we pull in teachers and teachers say, you know, I'm not comfortable with this selection, or the kids were not engaged in this, we can substitute it out and put something else in that is at grade level that they can use. Or if they want to change maybe the writing response, they can do that as well. So it is going to be customizable. And then, once again, they're collecting that input from the state and going to make adjustments as well. Some of the things that are not aligned with research that OER products are going to try to tackle are some of these things. For example, standalone scope and sequence, skills-based reading instruction or English instruction. Typically, and how I taught English was I taught particular skills. So I really wanted my kids to learn how to summarize, and we would summarize, and then I might give them another piece of text and expect them to be able to summarize as well. And that didn't always work. And what this particular, what this body of research is saying is that we need to focus more on building that knowledge instruction, less on skill-based and more on knowledge and vocabulary, and pulling in science and social studies. That is a critical piece that oftentimes reading and English teachers don't do. They don't pull in science and social studies. They love the fiction. They want to read those fictional pieces, and they might be more uncomfortable because oftentimes science and social studies text is a lot more challenging to read. However, the STAR test, over half of the reading test is science and social studies content. And so it's important that we give opportunities to read that complex text in those areas. In addition, we have traditionally taught writing through personal experience. Write about a time that you did blank. That is not how we write in the real world. We write with evidence. We write responding to text. We write responding maybe to an argument, and that is what we want our kids to do. That's higher level. And so that is the type of writing that is embedded in both Amplified and Edition 1. So teachers, so our pilot campuses that are using this, and just so you know, TEA has written not only K-5 reading, but also math K-12. So they're doing the same thing in math. I know today we're focusing on reading, but they have taken Eureka and Carnegie, which are the programs that we use, and they've taken those and they're doing the same process with them. They're getting feedback from experts, from school districts, from teachers, and they're developing those or have developed those into Edition 1. What's nice for teachers, for our teachers, is that it is the same instructional design. So it's gonna look the same. It has the same components, the units, the lessons, the structure is the same. The rigor level is the same. There are a few differences. It is customized more for Texas. So one of the things that we saw a couple of years ago with our 6 through 8 teachers is they came back with feedback with Amplify, and they said, this is great, Kim. It's hard, but we don't have enough of the type of writing in there that we see on STAR. So we pulled teachers in, and they helped us, and we developed lessons that really were customized to how they were going to be assessed. There's also additional implementation support, and there is a wider knowledge map. So you're going to see some of the changes here in a minute from Amplified to Edition 1 are a little bit broader. For example, in 5th grade, they have a unit that's been added that's on World War II. And that aligns great with social studies as well. And so it just kind of covers a broader range. However, in addition to the wonderful changes and the rigor and all of that comes some controversy. And so you might have seen recently in the news about a Bible-infused elementary school curriculum. And what they're talking about is Edition 1, but we want to share with you what this really means. And I think Misty's going to hop in here and kind of talk through that.
So you
I think we shared some news articles where you saw this mentioned. So some of the great things about edition 1 is that it's going to actually list people of Texas. So when we talk about heroes and we talk about things that have happened, we're going to use actual Texas examples so our kids can see that. And we're also going to see what is called connection to religious literature in historical content. So let me explain what I mean by that. Have you ever heard somebody say, well, make sure that you follow the golden rule? Or let me read to you the I Have a Dream speech from Martin Luther King, where he actually references Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And you talk about King Nebuchadnezzar, and you talk about those stories. Those stories are actually historical literature that is out of the Bible. They're stories that are out of religious pieces of text that we use with kids. When we teach social studies in secondary school, we use those historical pieces of context, and not just from Christianity, but from religion as a connection, because they are popular things that you see in literature all the time. This curriculum creates what is called a through line connecting those pieces so that you see actual historical religious literature connected inside what teachers are teaching. What it does not do is it does not ask teachers to proselytize. It does not ask teachers to have a Sunday school lesson. It does not ask teachers to talk about beliefs or faith or values. It asks them to use that as a piece of literature that you might read, just like a novel or another essay that you might read, and use that as a piece of historical information to make a connection. Because we wanted to make sure that this was something that was a comfort level inside of our community, before we talked about using this as a resource, we held a community meeting. We invited some parents. We invited some teachers and some principals and said, can we read these lessons together? Can we talk about them, and can we see what you think? We got a great response from the people in the room who went, these are normal stories. These are things that we've heard about. These are things that we grew up reading about, that people have heard of before, that aren't strange, that make sense. And the language around the lesson gives clarity to the teacher and to the students to explain what they're talking about. So let me show you what I mean. So when you look at this, you'll see these are changes that took place in what is called edition 1. So anything that is in the dark blue in edition 1, those will be new units that we would be a part of what kids are learning, and you can reference those 3 pilot schools for this next year. So for example, in just a minute, we'll look at some lessons, but inside serving our neighbors is a lesson on the golden rule. What does it mean throughout history, throughout cultures? Why do we call it the golden rule? What does it mean? How do we help each other? What is it to be nice to your neighbor? What does it mean to help other people? And so it references those things inside of that lesson. There is a lesson I'm going to show you inside 2nd grade that talks about Esther, who is a woman out of the Bible, and it talks about her story. And what does it mean in her story? It also references many other people from other pieces of literature and other religions across time, but that is one that is inside of there. So when you look at that, using literature, using religious literature as context in history, there is a through line that goes throughout. The goal in the through line is that when a 5th grader ends and gets to the Juneteenth unit and they actually read MLK's I Have a Dream speech, they can reference all of the historical literature that is in the speech and understand what it means from that through line to make sense and make the connection. So that is the end goal of what you see in the through line. The other through line that you see inside of this is a through line for science, a through line for social studies, and a through line for what we just call literacy, so just pieces of literature. The purpose behind that connects to what we talk about in the knowledge map, that it is important for students to read pieces where they are learning at the same time and they make that connection. It has more engagement for kids. It shows that their vocabulary gets more expanded. They connect better. They can draw better conclusions. They can do all the skills that you want inside reading, but they do it better when you actually connect it to content that is interesting and makes sense. If you think about your own reading, the things that you tend to engage in reading, that technical manual inside maybe how to repair your car, maybe doesn't work for me in my stay awake at night in reading, right? But something that I'm interested in, or I want to read more about, or I want to understand better. And the goal is, if you look at the coloration on there, is that not every kid may be interested in social studies or interested in science or interested in that literary tale, but if we mix it up, then we connect throughout the year to something that they are interested in. So when we talk about this new product, the goal in this new product was to strengthen text along 3 different units: the fight for religious freedom and the development of America and of Texas, equal protection under the law, and the abolition of slavery. And those are 3 through lines that are a part of those revisions that they were looking at to make social studies and science connections and to connect to Texas history so that we help our students to build some of that knowledge gap. When those resources are open, everyone can look at all the lessons, all the pieces, and all the parts. So we want to make sure that people have that opportunity, because the old version versus the new version looks almost the same with a few units that look different. So when we talk about some of those units that are different, you have in front of you a green folder. And so you have these sample lessons. You have Helping Our Neighbors, you have Esther, a Psalm of David, and Letter from Birmingham Jail. Letter from Birmingham Jail, excuse me. And you see the goal in the through line of that religious literature in historical context is to get you to those lessons inside 5th grade, where those references aren't just glossed over by a student, but they actually understand what it means. So when Martin Luther King wrote that letter, what did he mean when he said something about the fires that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were a part of? And those can just be words that I don't understand, or I could have done learning earlier on to make sure that I have those connections. So what we did in our community meeting and with our teachers is we dug in and we read the lessons. We read the text. We read the questions that the teachers would be given. We read the parent letter that goes out to the parents explaining what we're teaching and why we're teaching it and what it means. And then we gave them a chance to dig in, to ask feedback, to ask questions, to talk about their comfort level, to see if they felt like moving forward that this was something that they could get excited about. The teachers in the room, even those teachers that are our 4th grade teachers, that unit had a lot of changes and a lot of deep science connections, were incredibly excited about what that could look like and sound like, what that could mean, and what those resources would be for them in the future, and what those connections could be. They felt very comfortable with the questions that were asked, with the parent letter that was provided to send home, and it gave us that opportunity. They agreed to be a part of that pilot and gave them that opportunity to participate.
And some of the supports that we're given for teachers, I didn't realize this was the next slide, so
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
It's just so you know, we will be meeting with these teachers at all of our content co-ops, so they will have access to one another, and that way we can discuss with them their comfort level. Are there things that they want to change? TEA has asked for our feedback on this, so we'll be providing feedback as we go along. They know that we are piloting on these 3 campuses, and they want that feedback so that they can make those adjustments as well. So the teachers, as Misty said, were really excited about it, but they are going to be able to network together, and we have one of our specialists that is going to be solely working with our pilot campuses.
So we're happy to answer questions for you. Our goal today in doing this is that we wanted you to see what those 3 pilot campuses are doing. So they have the same units as everybody else except for those dark blue ones that you saw on that first page. But then also, because this is in the news, because it's out there, we want you to see what the community meeting saw, and then we also want you to see what our conversation and samples of those lessons that our teachers will also be providing today. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
This has been done in 3 or 4 schools?
In 3 schools.
3 schools.
It will be this next school year.
Will.
They'll be sharing this this next school year. They'll be piloting this coming year.
A couple of questions. The additional funding that is, I remember us speaking through that in committee. Do we know the ballpark on the?
Yeah, so it's, we receive $40 if, per child if we use something on the approved list, the big list, and
Okay.
then an additional $20 per child if we use the one item that is
Addition one.
approved as addition 1.
And that is not this school year.
Correct.
That is after it is approved by SBOE
In
and
November.
in November.
Right.
So that would be for the following, for next school year.
So that's real money. I mean, there is a
Yes, sir.
definite financial
Yeah,
advantage.
And the great part about the way that they're doing that is that the $20 per child, so let's say that we use addition 1 in K-5 for reading, but the 40 and the $20 addition are times our ADA population.
Right.
So it's not just designed for that group, so it really is a nice
Okay.
buffer, or influx of money.
Yeah.
Great.
Now that money goes into our IMA account
Mhm.
that is designed, I know, I'm looking at my notes over here, that is designed only for curriculum resource. It does not come in for staffing, it does not come in for police officers. It only goes in to the instructional materials allotment account, that can be used for curriculum resources. But what it does do is, every time we can offset that dollar amount, that does benefit us in our 199
Absolutely.
account to be able to do other things.
I have full faith in these 2 gentlemen here.
Yeah, but please note, I said that for the record, right?
You had mentioned also, or if you're going to speak about, go ahead.
I was just going to share 2 things. One, I hope that you heard the transparency behind this. Not only in that we had this community meeting, but the resources are already posted on TEA's website. Any parent, any community member right now can go in and see everything in the curriculum. And so it's very, very transparent for parents. And then we're going to take that a step further, and on these 3 campuses before each unit, we're going to send out a parent letter highlighting what's covered in the unit and send them the link to the materials if they want to go in and look. If a parent wants to opt out of one of these lessons, our campuses are fully prepared to provide alternate assignments as needed. I hope that they choose to allow their child to participate, but if for any reason they want to opt out, and we already do that.
Yeah, that's already in our
That's already a
procedures.
practice.
And the link that Dr. Rollo was referencing to be able to access the materials is actually in the presentation as well. So.
And then the other thing I would like to highlight is that I think it's important that we have a seat at the table for any adjustments that need to be made before this is rolled out statewide. And the true way to get true feedback and input is to actually go through the units. And so our teachers who were in these pilots are going to be invaluable in providing that rich feedback. Lubbock ISD has had a seat at the table in the development of this, and we need to continue to have a seat at the table. So I'm grateful to our team for being willing to take a risk and move out there and pilot this.
And we're one of 2 districts across the state that are part of the pilot.
And who's the?
What's the other district?
In the community meeting, tell me the timing on that again. That was when?
Ooh, I need to pull back up my calendar.
It
It's
was
been over a month ago.
Was it in May?
May.
Yeah,
It was in
I
May.
believe it was, yeah.
And we invited these 3 campuses because they, both Miller and Irvin, were part of the initial pilot. So we asked them if they would like to join again. And then Brown has been very steeped in Amplify teaching, and so we asked if they would like to come as well.
And so
we
they
had-
invited
we-
their parent.
Yeah, so we invited parents to come along.
From those
as well,
campuses, okay.
And then we had a couple parents that
From-
came from other campuses as well, but we invited to try to get just enough interest to see, you've had concerns, we want to make sure that you feel comfortable with this, and make sure that they felt good about what we were doing moving forward.
Okay. And then Kim, way back, I think it was like your second slide, there were some growth numbers. That slide, was that just the CER campuses, or was that
was
Lubbock
just
ISD?
LISD.
Those were just Lubbock
On the right-hand
ISD.
side, yes, ma'am,
Okay.
sorry, let me get back there.
Sorry,
There you
yeah,
go.
there you go. Okay, so those were Lubbock ISD growth
Uh-huh,
numbers.
yes, ma'am, from 2019 to 2023, those are
Okay.
just Lubbock ISD numbers in reading.
Okay, so pilot CER districts,
Yes, this was
That's-
actually a slide that the commissioner used at our
Okay.
System of Great Schools conference.
but the
And
numbers and the data is just
It's
ours.
just us, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
because that's pretty impressive.
Pretty significant, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Oh. And so what are the next steps then? I guess,
So this next school year, those 3 campuses will use it. We'll follow up with them to make sure that things are going well and collect feedback along the way. And then over the course of the year, there'll be opportunity to share this with other campuses to then move forward the following school year to make that be part of what Lubbock ISD does across the board. So we just want to, we have traditionally, each implementation, we have implemented with a pilot and then full scale, so that we can make sure that it works for us, that there's no concerns, that there aren't things we need to give feedback on.
okay. And that's not contingent on the SBOE vote in November.
November, the SBOE will vote to finalize Edition 1 as the lone finalist. That's the extra $20 bucket.
Okay.
They're already on the approved vendor list. They're taking all the feedback to finalize that. The only shift that could potentially happen is they are also collecting feedback online. And if there is some targeted or specific feedback about an edit or an adjustment that needs to be made before Edition 1 is finalized.
Okay.
So, and that can go from typo to this, in all kinds of things that
Right.
they'll correct inside the curriculum.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have need for an executive closed session. An executive closed session will be held under the provisions of Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. It is 8:27 a.m. and we are adjourned to closed session.